Yo, welcome to Pitch Report. My name's Amilcar.
And this is Mr. Leo.
Wow, feels so weird to take Mario's intro here, but for some people that are listening to us, we say konnichiwa to them. Mario is in Japan, so had Mr. Leo come in here and help us out for a couple episodes while he's out there. It seems like you only really get brought in when someone's in Japan.
Yeah, somebody's got to be the substitute, but I'm pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, but it's just ironic that it's every time that someone goes to Japan, you end up being here. So.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, because last time I was in Japan and you substituted. So, we got a good show for you guys today. Very excited. Bear with me. It's my first time doing like the full-time, host of the podcast. Mario left some really big shoes to fill. So let's hope that I can even play up to that. So, yeah, let's just jump right into it. I think a couple things we want to talk about, first is just like San Diego FC. I think we always want to touch on them a little bit because obviously they were close to the top. They've gone on a couple game losing streak here. You've gone to a couple of the games, right? The last couple ones?
Yeah, last couple home games, including the one against Cholos. But yeah, it's been kind of underwhelming as far as like their end of the season, just because we really expected them to keep that pace up of being like, I guess, like a tough team to beat, but obviously they haven't kept up with that.
Yeah, so I haven't been able to go to the games because I've had various different commitments or things that were going on. So I'm glad that at least you've been able to enjoy the tickets and have some fun there. But I know they haven't won a home game in some time, so it's a little bit frustrating. But the crazy part about them is that they're such a good road team, which is kind of wild. You're pulling it up. But I guess outside of the Club Tijuana game, which was kind of like the Club America game, where it was basically subs, right, the entire time?
Yeah, at least for San Diego FC, it was a lot of the players were bench players or whatever, like subs. And Cholos actually had most of their starting lineup, except for like maybe a couple players, which was actually good to see that they were able to keep up with a Mexican League team that like is pretty high up on the leaderboard right now.
Yeah, so we were stoked to see that. They played well. I think they were down like most of the game actually until the last probably like 20 minutes. They scored a couple bangers, which was exciting to watch. But it's also crazy to watch a game and see players with like the number like 243 or like 179. And I feel like only Mexican teams I feel like have players like that, because even like reserves on like other teams is like 50 or 30 or 40.
Yeah, I've only seen that in the Mexican League, really, like as far as like 100 or 200, which is really, really strange. And it's kind of started back in the day with like some Chivas player that would wear 100 all the time for a long time. But you see that a lot more now, especially with like Cantera kids coming up and whatnot. But even like in the Spanish League, I think they don't do that. They don't even do anything over like 30 or 40, which is like pretty crazy. And then you go to the Italian league, it's like you see 89 or like basically a football lineup.
Yeah, I remember when Ronaldinho went to AC Milan. I think he was like 99 or 90.
80.
Oh, he was 80? Okay. I remember he had like a pretty big number when he was at AC Milan, but in Real Madrid, wow, I wish. In Barcelona, he was like 10 or like, I remember like watching a video a long time ago that it was like, Florentino Perez didn't like any player. Like he liked every single number filled from 1 until whatever the squad ended at. So, people have some particular rules, but yeah, seeing triple digits on a name is like almost like seeing like those really big last names that just kind of curl over the whole back of the player.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Like as far as that goes, it's like having multiple like last names, and then you see how they try to fit him into the tiniest shirt ever, but I just thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the next segment is something that I think people either love or hate. It depends on how you feel about it. Like, I don't know, I think I've gone different ways on this topic, but the Ballon d'Or. So when we're recording, it just happened last week, and we know that Ousmane Dembele ended up winning it. Not without any controversy. I think a lot of people thought that Lamine Yamal or another player was going to be up in the running, and whether people believe that Lamine Yamal got robbed or Dembele was rightful owner or winner. People have their own perspectives about it. So I guess on your opinion, like, how do you feel about, I guess, just like the men's award, starting with that, just like, how do you feel about Dembele winning? And do you think he was the deserving winner? What do you think about Yamal? Kind of what's your thought on the whole thing?
Well, I think if we go off of like kind of what we know or think are the requirements to win or whatever the prereqs, like he was a rightful winner. He scored the most goals out of the top 2 or 3 players that were nominated for the Ballon d'Or, and then he won the most trophies, and that they were saying that that's one of the reasons that some players haven't won it in the past was because of that. But then you have other circumstances where they haven't won anything, i.e. Messi winning the Ballon d'Or at Inter de Miami, which is insane to me. But I thought Dembele was the rightful winner. And I think maybe, like, I'm not a Barca fan whatsoever, but he should have been top 3, if not top 2 easily, just because of what he did really for that team.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of the drama, I guess, or what, like, the frustrations that came from people was not even necessarily like the winner, but I think it was like the top 10 or like where some players were sitting. So I'm just like pulling up like the top 10 and just seeing like some of the players. I can't think of like a specific, but I think Vitinha was, I think, pretty far down. So was he like 5, I want to say. Or Rafinha being 4. Like, how do you feel about that? Because I think there was a lot of people that said if anybody on Barcelona should have won, it should have been Rafinha over Lamine Yamal, because Lamine Yamal has like spurts of like greatness, but Rafinha was the one that was scoring all the goals, really assisting, and had that breakout season.
Yeah, I think it's kind of very foggy as far as like the requirements, right? Some people say one thing and others say another, so it kind of comes down probably to like all the judges. Really, you don't really know what they're looking for, because some people are like, oh well, Lamine should have won it because of his football, which it was good, but he didn't really score as much. There was other players that outscored him, but they weren't even talked about. So I think as far as their rankings and who was the most important to their club, definitely Rafinha was more important to Barca than Yamal was, just because he scored and assisted over 60 goals. And, I mean, in just La Liga alone, they had over 120 goals in the season, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes down to, where you're just determining, like, what does the award mean? Like, it's like the MVP award in NFL. Like, it goes to a quarterback all the time. Are they the best player? Maybe not, but it just ends up going to them. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the award has kind of like, I don't know, I think lost a little bit of cachet over probably the last like 5 or 6 years. A lot of people say it's like ever since Modric won it over Ronaldo that year. A lot of people were pretty bitter about that and said that like ever since then, like there's not really like a clear criteria or any like rhyme or reason for players winning it, and it's not necessarily the best player in the world. It's just like kind of like who's the hype for, and I think that's 100% where Lamine Yamal comes in. But I mean, that guy's gonna win it. I read a stat literally just right now. It said like no one's won it before their 21st birthday, and I'm like, he's 18 years old, so like he's got 3 years. He's probably gonna win it honestly in the next 3 years if he doesn't regress much before that, which I don't really see him doing. So. And I guess mainly because he didn't have a crazy season in terms of like crazy amount of goals, assists, or anything like that. He just had some games and some matches where he made some plays that you're just like, how the heck did he do that? And I think those are the moments where he really ends up, playing really well. And I will say he won the Copa Trophy, which is basically like the best young player. It's back-to-back years he's won it. And next year he'll probably win it again if he doesn't go for the Ballon d'Or, because it's just like, I don't really see anybody competing with him.
Yeah, and I think that's something that was like mentioned somewhere. I kind of heard it. They're like, it doesn't really matter if he wins the Ballon d'Or before 21, because he'll probably win every single Copa from here till he's 21. So at least, I mean, I don't know what the opinion is. I'm kind of okay with that, but I guess it just kind of comes down to what happens from here till then, because then you also have dudes like Doué competing for that same award, and ultimately really like competing for the Ballon d'Or. But yeah.
Yeah, so I guess all to say that, we'll see how it goes. I think it's just like the power rankings you see in all these other sports. They're literally, I think after the award was given away, they were like, all right, next year's Ballon d'Or, like who's it gonna be, And now there's like the UEFA like the best, and so there's a ton of different awards that are being given out that are trying to compete with the Ballon d'Or. So I mean, I think it's still gonna be prestigious, but is it the same level of prestige when Ronaldo and Messi were winning, them back and forth for the better part of a decade or more? Will it be that? Like, I don't know. It's kind of like more of a toss up. Like, you don't have to win all the things, you don't have to score all the goals, you don't have to be the best player. A little bit different on that one for sure.
Yeah, I think we were spoiled in that regard, where like we were used to watching Ronaldo and Messi literally trying to outscore each other. Like that's who they were competing against, really, just each other back then. Whereas like you're watching them score 60, 70, even 90 goals in one season. So does it really come down to goals now, or is it going to change, just because of that? They're a different type of human being when they're scoring that many goals. So it's hard to compare like Dembele or any of the newer dudes to them, really.
Yeah, I think that like does the disservice to these players that are really, really good, because you're just like, nah, like you're not like a Ballon d'Or. Like, you shouldn't win it. You should be scoring 50 goals, which is like pretty much unheard of. Like, that just doesn't happen, But yeah, I think we got spoiled early on, especially for like younger fans, growing up and watching all that and thinking that that's normal and that people are supposed to be doing it all the time, which is couldn't be further from that.
Yeah, scoring 30 goals is just as good as scoring 60. Just because it did happen back then doesn't mean that it wasn't good enough. Like, I mean, we got like, it's hard to compare, so we can't really compare it to what the numbers that they were pulling, really. And just kind of to touch on that, like as far as like next year, right now, a hard contender is easily Mbappe. Like, he's probably, like, you can't tell me he's not the best player in the world right now. Just the way he's scoring, he's carrying Madrid, really.
Yeah, I think he's had like, I think 9 matches, had 12 or 13 goals already, not even counting goal contribution. So yeah, he's kind of going on a rampage, and I think it's like his revenge season right now for being, I think he was 6th in the Ballon d'Or voting. So hopefully, because we're both Real Madrid fans, hopefully that ends up working out in our benefit, and we, see him score a bunch of goals and win a bunch of titles. But that honestly probably segues us perfectly for the next segment that we're going to talk about, which is going to be kind of the Champions League. With it's back. I know we haven't done a podcast since the Champions League, I think, has come back. So kind of the early thoughts on the Champions League. It looks like it's Bayern Munich's first. Real Madrid is in second. Mind you, they've only played 2 games. PSG in third. Inter Milan in fourth. As you guys all know, they did change the format of the Champions League, so it's a little bit different now, where they get rated into one big group. Yeah, like speaking of goals, I guess we can start with the goals. It's Real Madrid scoring 5 goals on, I can't even pronounce.
Kairat.
Yeah, there you go. Kairat. Yeah. And traveling basically to Kazakhstan, which is the furthest. I think it was a 12-hour flight from Madrid, which is unheard of to think that that's even Europe, which I actually don't think it's Europe. I think it's like,
I think it's Asia.
Yeah, it's like Eurasia. I think it's like somewhere in the middle between I guess Europe and Asia, obviously. But I think they call it Eurasia. And yeah, scored 5 goals, which was good because unfortunately, we know that Real Madrid didn't have a great showing this weekend against Atletico Madrid, which was very rough, losing 5-2, and that was just like getting spanked. So we definitely needed to come back and do that and get all those goals. But who has been like your biggest surprise, or like how do you feel about the Champions League so far? Mind you, only been 2 games.
As far as the Champions League, what's kind of been a surprise has been, I mean, that surprised me this week at least, Galatasaray beating Liverpool 1-0. Like, that's pretty wild to me. And watching some of these other, like, first-time teams, like, coming in and, like, not being scared of like, teams that have made it or played in the Champions League before, especially, like, I forget the name of the team, but they beat Copenhagen, and Copenhagen is consistently in the Champions League. They beat them 2-0. And, Yeah, it's kind of wild to see. Like even Caria or whoever, like sorry, I can't pronounce the name, but they started off pretty hot against Madrid. Like they weren't nervous, like just because like the best team in history was visiting them. They weren't like they didn't sit back and defend a 0-0. Like they were out to get it, and honestly, they almost scored a couple chances, and I was kind of nervous, you know. And then after the first like 15 minutes, Madrid was like, "All right, we're gonna take care of this," and then they sure did. I did expect them to score like 10 goals, you know, like watching Bayern score 10 goals on other teams. Like we should be able to do the same thing, but yeah, like even Marseille has been kind of a surprise. Like they've been kind of like running and gunning, you know.
Yeah, and I guess a little bit of a sidebar is having Mourinho as Benfica coach, going back to Chelsea, a place he managed, I think, in two separate spurts, seeing that. And Mourinho, you know, aka the chosen one, or whatever you want to call him, he's the kind of guy that just like he doesn't go away, right? Because he was the Fenerbahce coach, I think. He had a couple of different stints in some like quote unquote lower level teams. Now he's back up in Benfica. I think they fired, was it Nuno or Espiritu Santo, I think was his name, at Benfica. He came back, took over. Now he's back in the Champions League again. So that was also a very interesting thing to watch, and all the Benfica fans being very upset at Enzo Fernandez and throwing stuff on the field and whatnot. So I really do love that about the Champions League, where you have a bunch of teams playing that they just don't get to play all the time. And I think Mario kind of hit it on the head when we were talking about this last year. Is like you always end up watching teams that you had never heard of or never really seen. And I think obviously the Kairat from Kazakhstan, or you have like other teams that you've just never heard of. And with this bigger format, you're actually able to watch them. So it's kind of neat. It gives me like March Madness kind of vibes.
Yeah, definitely. Like I completely agree with that. Like one of the other teams that we could mention is Karabakh. They've won both of their matches so far in the Champions League. Yeah, sure, you might not expect them to go very far, but like that's still pretty impressive. Like I think their first time in the Champions League, I could be wrong, maybe it's like their second, but still like that's pretty impressive. Like I get that they were playing Copenhagen today, but in reality Copenhagen should probably be winning this match or at least tying. But like it's kind of cool to see. And then you see teams like Athletic Bilbao, who are at the bottom of the list, like next to some of these like first timer teams. Like it just goes to show like the Champions League is kind of like where anything could really happen.
Yeah, like talking about that team, like they played Copenhagen, but they beat Benfica 3-2, and that's like, and the team he's talking about is I think called Qarabağ FK, and they're from Azerbaijan, which once again, didn't know that was part of Europe, but I think it's like Europe and the Champions League now with this expanded format. But yeah, being able to see teams like that come out of nowhere, it's like almost like the 16 versus 1 upset in March Madness. Say you're like anything can happen in any of these matches, and it's almost like I think more conducive with this new format now, because these guys, like, they're not going to play Benfica again. Like every time someone comes to play them, it's the first time they've played them, right? They're not playing home and away, which I think was not as conducive for these random small teams to make it far in the league, or at least get ranked high in this like pool play.
Yeah, I think definitely it made it a lot more difficult to get out of the group stage in that setup as being a smaller team. But now you're kind of, I guess it's a better chance just because you get to play a little bit more games. You get one more game. It kind of comes down to points, where a tie could matter in a bigger scheme. As far as like just competing against 3 other teams, like maybe 3 ties wouldn't be so helpful, or you just never know what could happen really. And touching back on the Mourinho thing, I just thought of this. It's kind of crazy that you get fired from a team to end up on a Champions League team, you know, like it's like who really lost there, you know?
Yeah, and he got fired because he didn't win that like qualifying game to make it into the Champions League. But he's like, all right, see you guys. I'm going to go to a different team, and now kind of go back, because he won the Champions League. Was it with Benfica? I think he won a long time ago. Yeah, Inter was one of the first ones, but I wonder if it was Benfica, or it was another Portuguese team that he took, and that's kind of what started making him be that kind of special special. Oh, FC Porto. Okay, we looked it up. FC Porto, but also another Portuguese smaller side that had no business winning it. Same thing with Inter, had no business beating Barcelona, beating all these teams, and that's why I think they call him the special one. But then, ironically, he went to like Chelsea, Real Madrid, like all these huge teams, and wasn't able to close it and win the Champions League. So that is kind of interesting. But yeah, let's talk about. Let's see any other big ones like. I mean, Atletico Madrid went off, and I think they really just needed that win against Real Madrid to kind of come back and start playing really well because they beat Eintracht Frankfurt 5-1, which is crazy because Eintracht Frankfurt is a pretty good team. So for them to be able to score that many goals after putting 5 past Courtois and Real Madrid is a big one. And then obviously Bayern also another 5 goals. So I think the top teams, the only thing that's separating them right now is just goal differential, the top 5 or 6 teams. And that's the reason why Real Madrid is second, because they were able to score 5 goals against Kairat or whatever that team was. So yeah, really looking forward to this the next leg, which I think is gonna be coming up. Was it next week or is there a break? Oh, okay. Couple weeks. Okay, so we had a couple weeks till we have to cover that again. But yeah, I'm very, very, very pumped to be covering Champions League again because I think that's like probably one of my favorite competitions.
Yeah, it's definitely one that gives you the most to talk about. There's a lot of games, especially now with this new format, and there's a lot of new teams, so it makes it really interesting and exciting to watch. Like, you just don't know who's gonna win, you know? Like, teams like Newcastle, even last Champions League, they were beating I think they beat Bayern Munich, and they beat a couple other really good teams, and you're just like, holy crap, like it can't, like, these other teams can't compete like where maybe normally you wouldn't think of it, you know. But even, I mean, I guess just to touch on Newcastle, they're doing pretty well, I think, in the Premier League too, but it's just it's cool to see.
Yeah, so speaking of the Premier League, La Liga, let's touch a little bit of base on kind of these leagues and see kind of how they're doing and what you're thinking. It's still really early on. I think La Liga has 7 matches played and Premier League 6. So they're kind of, you know, what would you say, like a quarter, if that even, of the way through the league. And so in the Premier League, I think it's no surprise. Liverpool, Arsenal, well, actually Crystal Palace, that one's kind of a surprise for them to be in third. Tottenham, Sunderland, so that's kind of the top 5. And then in La Liga, no surprise really, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Villarreal, and then Elche. Wow, coming out of nowhere. They're there, and then Atletico Madrid, and then Real Betis, which is actually like probably my second favorite team, I would say, out of them, just because they have like Isco and then Anthony, and it's just, I feel like very fun team to watch. So what are your initials, like takeaways? Like what surprises you about La Liga or like the EPL that, or kind of, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Right now, as far as the Premier League, what's kind of surprising is, like you said, like Crystal Palace is up there. Like they're definitely competing. Like they're only 3 points behind Liverpool, and Liverpool just choked 2 losses in a row. You know, especially I forget who they lost against recently, but they lost 1-0 over the weekend. They lost 1-0 to Galatasaray today. So, like, you just never know. They might go into a slump. See, Crystal Palace is the one that beat them. So, they're definitely, like, a runner-up. Dude, like, teams that are choking right now is, I think Chelsea's choking in the Premier League. And so is the Spurs. Like, they were like kind of doing pretty good, but like they got back-to-back ties, I believe, and then Man City's just struggling. Like maybe it's time to fire Pepe Guardiola, dude. I don't know, but yeah, Liverpool might pick it up. Like I can't see them not like keeping up their pace and getting back to winning, and then Arsenal's looking pretty solid in both Champions League and the Premier League.
Firing Pep Guardiola, that's a bold statement. Like, I don't know that anybody's ever said that, and I honestly don't know like that'll ever happen. I feel like he has enough, like, I don't know, enough credibility built in the bank, you know, that no matter, he can have like a couple really bad seasons, and this is not a bad season per se, and once again, we're 6 matches in, so they're in 7th place right now. Lost a couple other games. It seems like they kind of got back into shape the last couple of games, but Yeah, I feel like he's one of those coaches where you're just not going to get rid of him because he's going to go somewhere else and win, and then you're just going to be like, damn, could have still had him.
Yeah, I guess that's a pretty bold statement. I don't know. He might pull a Simone now, a Cholo type deal where you go 10 years and only win one trophy, and you're still the highest paid somehow. But who knows? Obviously, there's no way they're gonna fire him, and Man City's got to pick it up. It's only 6 matches in, but definitely the standards are, or at least the expectations are way higher at Manchester City than, even like Everton. Like probably been mid-table is like a solid season for them,
Yeah, and that actually brings up a good point. I think something that's really interesting is like how much do you think is the like having a consistent coach that's been there for some time and that you can kind of work with the players, kind of like like you said, Diego Simeone or Pep Guardiola, or I don't know. Those are probably the two that come, or like Arsene Wenger. Like I think when he was at Arsenal for the longest time, how do you think that compares to like a team like Man United right now, currently, where they're it's a turnstile every year or two. There's a new coach. Like, do you think it's like part of it is that they can't be successful when they're only there for a year or 2 years because they don't have any consistency, or do you think it's they're getting fired because they're just not good? Like, what do you think consistency plays like a big part in like success of the team?
I would assume that it does play like a huge role but you just never know. You see like dudes that come in, like Zidane came in and won 3 Champions League in a row. So like, he wasn't consistent, but I mean, I guess he was around, but I don't know. I guess it's hard to compare what Man United's going through. Like literally, like I really don't know the last time they were like a good team, like competitively. But and it's just kind of sad to see teams like that like just take a dive. But I think definitely a consistency plays a role, but it's also kind of like probably the percent that like the how you get along with the coaches and kind of like the morale. Kind of seems like the morale at Man United is pretty low, and I don't know, they might just have to completely rebuild. Like just clean house, dude. I don't know. Like at this point, like you could just try anything there, and anything's better than what's going on right now.
Yeah, poor Mario's probably listening to this like, man, not my team. They're talking about them. Like, they're just destroying him. Like, I got to get back to the podcast soon so I can defend Manchester United's honor. But yeah, I think what a lot of the players, and I think with that team, it's kind of unique because they have such high profile, big names that have played there before, and that the team was in such a big place or such a great place with like their prior kind of iteration of players. And now it's like a lot of them just talk about like it's like a full rebuild from ownership, from directors of sport, from everybody, just like starting all brand new and not just let's replace a coach, keep the same players, spend a couple $100 million, bring a couple players in, and then fire the coach and start all over again. And I think you're right. I think it's probably going to take more than that. It's just going to be like a full overhaul rebuild from start to finish. And I mean, they're in 14th place right now. So, I mean, they're not quite at relegation, but they're pretty close. And they have Sunderland next, which is playing pretty well right now, and then Liverpool. So they're not, Sunderland's ranked 5th. So they're not going to have really anybody like any let up here. So yeah, I mean, that the EPL is not for the weak, man. Like a mid-table team is pretty solid, and it's just very, very difficult. Like any team can beat anybody in the EPL, which I don't think you can say that about the French league or La Liga or the Bundesliga or all those other leagues.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. And you gotta feel bad for Ruben, dude. Like he came from like a winning team. Like Sporting was doing really well in Portugal, and he had Gyökeres just playing lights out, obviously. So like you go to like a big name club, which Sporting is in its right, a big club. But you go to Manchester United, who's got a huge history and is kind of like it just goes downhill. Where like he doesn't seem happy. Like he's just, I mean, how could you really when you're not winning consistently? You can't even win like a few games in a row, which I mean that kind of reminds me of the dude that's not getting not shaving, or he's not cutting his hair until Man U wins 5 matches in a row, which I think he's got to be letting his hair grow out for a while.
I know. It's funny enough, that guy, I think I saw a video the other day, and he was getting like bullied at Manchester United games because some like the OG fans were like pulling his hair and saying it like he's all doing this for the clout. And I think he kind of came out after and said like, I'm doing this to just try to like at least have some fun with this. And, it's such a terrible time to be a Man United fan, and at least, have some fun, try to, have some enjoyment with this. And some people were really upset, especially like the OG fans, about him just clout chasing or just doing, this for fun, I guess, or like making fun of the team, which he said, he's like, no, that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah, like I didn't even hear about like him getting like bullied at games, but I could see how some fans could take offense to it. But like he's looking at the silver linings, like might as well have fun if we're gonna be playing horrible, might as well have some fun with it. And like just kind of going back to the rebuild thing, like again, definitely not a Barca fan, but like to an extent, like they were kind of doing it okay, like they have a lot of like cantera players, and it keeps probably like them motivated, and all the younger dudes motivated to come up and play, and instead of just throwing a bunch of money around, I'm pretty sure there's a crazy number, but like it's got to be like 400 or 500 million that they spent over the last like even 2 or 3 years. And those players have not performed. And I mean, I think you're better off not even going to Man United, dude. Like your career probably just ends there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to go there because they're like, oh, I'm going to be the one to save the team, save the club, and then you're just like, you get there and your kind of your career's ruined. Like Anthony's a perfect one. He was doing so well, went there to save the club and go with his old coach, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, now my career's kind of ruined, and now you're like, he's out of Betis, which is fine, right? But like he could have been at a big name club playing, Champions League soccer, and he's not, So like it's one of those things like where if you are the person that brings them out of this, like you're immortalized, like in Manchester United like history, you're gonna be like the best thing ever, like Wayne Rooney and like a lot of people, So yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be something super interesting. It's not something that's gonna be fixed now. It's gonna take a long time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how it goes. And yeah, just gonna do a quick little plug for our San Diego SC. As will be the last thing we'll touch on here. We're playing on Saturday against the Houston Dynamo. We have that match, which is away, and then we have the match against the Portland Timbers, which is also away, and then we got some playoff soccer. So very excited. I signed up for my tickets, so I'm stoked to hopefully be able to make some of those matches. And yeah, San Diego FC still number 1 in the West. I think they've fallen a little behind on the Supporters Shield, which, would be kind of something crazy for them to be able to do. But they're like in 3rd place now for the Supporters Shield. But yeah, very excited for that. Looking forward to seeing them this weekend. Hopefully we can get a win. They are playing away from home, so maybe that will actually allow them to win. But yeah, so that about does it for today's episode. Thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate being a part of your day, talking soccer and hanging out. So remember, you can follow us on Instagram and X at @_pitch report. And I'm Amilcar.
And this is Mr. Leo.
And we'll see you guys on the next one. Mr. Leo will be here for at least another episode or two, so don't worry, you'll be seeing him around here. Thank you guys.